Hi, everybody, and welcome to Pop Goes the Stack, where we take emerging tech, flip it upside down, and see what falls out besides our own fragile sense of control. I'm Joel Moses, filling in as your lead host today for Lori, who can't be here. I'm here to talk about what shift left means when the agent is writing code faster than we can argue about linting rules. We're diving into the new reality where guardrails start at intent and policies kick in before a single token hits the repo, and your delivery pipeline might have to babysit an over-enthusiastic vibe coding model with control of your keyboard. So buckle up, this one gets spicy. With me today is Buu Lam, Director of Community Evangelism, or as I like to call him sometimes, Mr. Dev Central. Welcome, Buu.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here and excited to listen to one of your intros live. It is always a treat to listen to those. So I feel honored.
Well, it's good to have you here. I thought we would begin by talking about a little bit about your experiences with using AI-directed coding, vibe coding, as it's come to be called. Can you describe for us some of the things that you've done for the community work that you've been doing?
Yeah, vibe coding for me has been a bit of a journey. I would say, I don't know, maybe other folks have gone into things like Lovable, type in some sort of prompt and be wowed that some sort of app just appeared based on a couple sentences. So I've gone in between that of just, hey, what can I do from kind of a one shot and here's an application. I also went through, and I recommend this for a lot of people, me not having a development background, I actually went through a crash course or a really quick course on Python. Mm-hmm. And through that, I was like, oh, now I know everything about programming. And so started to play a little bit more with vibe coding. And I went from, hey, I'm just going to put in a couple prompts and just create something, to actually peeling it back and being like, thinking about, okay, now that I know how these pieces come together, can I be a little bit more thoughtful about how an application comes together and actually vibe code pieces of an application? And so we're fortunate to have GitHub Copilot at F5.
Yeah.
And so playing with that. And more recently, I got on the Claude code train, and I don't know if I'm getting off because having AI from the CLI has been fantastic. So again, I've gone from really testing out Claude code. How far can I get with a single prompt to actually starting to have a conversation with Claude to plan an application first and weighing out all the decisions and having it ask me questions about what I want to do with this. And then coming up with a few spec documents. And when I actually go to start building up the application, we plan out a feature list and we actually go through and vibe code a feature list one by one. And it's really allowed me to narrow down certain use cases for applications. And I still don't think I'm necessarily the best vibe coder at this point, but I actually start to see like there's a range of vibe coding out there.
Yeah, there is. Now, how would you rank vibe coding as an asset for you? Tell me about what it was able to help you accomplish, for example.
Yeah, so I have an example of, a lot of the things that people see from me out in public on social media is these videos that I do. And sometimes people will ask me, hey, how did you be at an event and have that video that you recorded come out that evening or the next morning? And the answer to that up until a couple of weeks ago was, oh, I actually just stayed up all night to do that by hand. Now, using Claude, I actually went through and took all of the processes that I have that have actually been processes that are as fast as possible that I can do. First principles, let's get rid of all the things that we don't need and do that process manually, if quote unquote manually, if you will. And so knowing all of that, I actually worked with Claude to say, okay, this is what I'm trying to do here. These are all the things that I have to think about. What could an application look like? And we went through and made some adjustments and I started to build that. And so that pipeline of media, taking the content in, doing the transcriptions of the content. Those are, to me, are really important because I do deal with a lot of international folks and I want, although it's English, I want the English to be right so that auto translation can work off of a caption file. So I do transcripts for folks, and I have OpenAI Whisper integrated into this application to do that. OpenAI Whisper has its understanding. It has different size models and different variations within those sizes as well. But you can take the approach of fine tuning of Whisper, or you can take the approach of actually just adding a vocabulary file to Whisper as well.
Mm-hmm.
So in our industry, we've got a lot of acronyms, we've got a lot of terms, and we've got, as I travel internationally, a lot of accents as well. So
Right.
I can actually build a vocabulary file, something that I can export, import as well. So it's transportable between projects. So I can do those transcriptions super easily. This app monitors a folder for MP4 files, and then I can cut my social copy. I can actually do edits on the fly within there. So it'll allow me to just break apart a video and be able to crop out different parts, and just sends it off to FFmpeg and spits that out back to me. I have stats tracking in there as well. Another really great part of this is LinkedIn is not very open with its API for folks.
Mm-hmm.
It protects the social network. But you can have Claude build extensions in Chrome that will do things that don't need the API to get the information that you need, at least in much fewer clicks as well. And so I built that into it, little add-ons to make everything go faster. So at the net of it is, I took a business process that I see value in, collapse that business process into an application, kind of prove that saves me time. I think it'll save my team time as well. And then we can look at, okay, what does that look like if it's actually a production system and not just a little script that I'm running on my laptop?
Right. That sounds good. And effectively, the net value to you is that you get to sleep at night while all of this post-processing occurs, which is wonderful. Now, a lot of this is essentially what you're describing to me is a managed pipeline. So in one side goes the raw video, and out the other side comes a finished package, and all the way down to applying it to the various social networks that you need to apply it to. So you're managing a pipeline, and you talked about moving it to production. So let's roll back a little bit and talk about what you've done. What you've effectively done is you've created a structure that vibe codes, and you have you use directed input to an AI system to help you plan out what elements that you could bring to bear for that pipeline. So your experiments, for example, with Claude Code, you're developing effectively a development plan, a product plan, so to speak, and then you're executing on that. Now, there of course is a lot of interest in having that whole solution managed as part of an ongoing code maintenance pipeline. So you have the AI in the background continuously working to improve the pipeline that you've developed. And so a lot of this is beginning to tie itself to agentic AI. So not just using vibe coding as a tool to assist the human in coding, but also applying vibe coding structures to automatically create enhancements to the pipeline when it notices problems. Now, it's the I guess there was a lot of talk in the development circles about shifting left, about doing things with coding API first, and developing a shift left approach to your use of agentic AI in your pipeline is also becoming a popular thing. Now, what are some of the risks that you can see in that? Like describe for me some things where maybe the vibe coding system that you used maybe took a wrong turn. Did you have any of those occur?
I've seen it take a wrong turn in terms of creating the thing that I asked it to create, and not in that it did something wrong, but I wasn't descriptive enough. And I think that's kind of where the sharp edges are, because I could see that it's not asking me about package versions. Mm-hmm. So you would probably need a Claude skill to go out and do a scan to see if, hey, the
right.
packages that I'm pulling down, is there anything that I should be concerned about here? There's the tests that Claude will do as it's testing the features that I asked it to build. And I can see it correcting itself, but within there's no security validations as part of it as well. So you probably need to build skills around that. as well. It's also just up in building the Docker, in my case, building up a Docker container after it's done doing local testing and packaging it for me, because I want to be able to just spin it up with a Docker Compose. And so from that respect, it's also pulling in from the requirements file to see, what other things do I need to build up for this environment. But all of those things along the way, those are all the things I think we talk about shifting left. And those are things that, if you haven't adopted all of that already, you probably need to think about that just in your own little environment there.
Yeah. Now, what other things do you think you should think about if you say you want to enhance the pipeline that you've created, and you want to use agentic AI to its fullest extent, and have the code effectively self-improve to notice new library versions, as you mentioned, and incorporate those automatically without having to go back and run through your prompt sets again in order to generate new code. What are some of the things that you think you might want to watch for if you do that?
Yeah, I've seen the wonderful folks at JFrog actually gave me a demo of this before, but having global, or at least corporate-wide policies on the artifacts that are brought in. And I think there's the security implications to that, but there's also compatibility implications to that as well. If you might be creating something that is more client server, and you're creating the client side of things, and you're creating something that could potentially impose something on the server side, or vice versa. I think there's implications to that as well. But Claude can just go out and pull anything it wants at the end of the day into your stuff. So if you're not paying close attention to what actually comes in, and then in addition to that, like things that static code analysis that you would hopefully people would do as well, or dynamic analysis, or dynamic security testing on your application, that's not built into the into that pipeline as well. So translating all of that, and I had Claude build some GitHub actions for me to do a rebuild of a thing that I was doing as well. But within there also, it rebuilds once a day. And within that, there isn't this is not a production application, by the way.
Right.
There's no security checks in those GitHub actions that it's building.
Right.
And I'll give you an example here. I was building something that needed an API key. That API key has constraints on it, but Claude asked me to hardcode the API key into the code. And I'm like, hold up, Claude, I don't want to do that. And we worked together to, do
to resolve that. Yeah. So effectively what you're telling me is, first of all, you need a place to evaluate as part of the planning loop. So putting evals in your planning loop, it's a bit like having a personal trainer that slaps the donut out of your hand before you commit to your repo, right? So having a place to evaluate what's about to be applied. I think also maybe using sandboxing by default. So, an agent, if you ask it to do things, you want to have a box in which it can draw with crayons. It's like a toddler with a box of crayons. They'll still try to color the dog, but at least they'll ask permission first, right? So I think that's another mechanism that could be brought to bear there as well. Another thing is, these services, and you used a GitHub action as an example, never incorporate as part of their security model any secrets or keys. But even beyond that, there are elements where you might want to incorporate a check for what I would call overutilization. So instead of instantiating 50 different GitHub actions, try to figure out ways that you can reduce the instantiation to one, because that has a direct correlation to cost. So runtime tripwires, I guess. Maybe watching to see if the agent is intently spawning infinite threads, or using 4 actions where one will suffice. So these are all elements that you're going to have to catch or write into your prompts that guide the actions of your agent. Any other things you can think of?
Just on that note, to that last point there, is that my early attempts at vibe coding, where I didn't really know what I was doing, I was passing full context back and forth, and I was using a GitHub plugin, or sorry, a VS Code plugin that was showing me the costs for each back and forth. And the number kept going up and up and up because it kept adding more stuff and something broke. And Copilot was like, oh, I'll just add in some debugging. Well, it added debugging everywhere. So that number just kept, so I can see for GitHub Actions, you're paying for usage on that one as well. So seeing that go up and up is, that's a scary thought for letting things get away from you. I've also seen more recently Docker in your sandbox environment there as you're building. If you're using Docker, they have, seems like policy-driven MCP, or they policy-defined MCP servers that they make available, and also MCP gateway for egress control for MCP servers as well. So that might be a scenario there where, people incorporate that into their sandbox development. They can see what's going on.
Yeah, it's a good idea. The other thing that I can think of is that, if you're going to have a system that conducts these actions, every action should be logged and make sure that you can trace it back. I mean, you talked about a GitHub action that needs to use an API key. Well, if you give an agent the access to use that key and then expect it to stay within some confines that you've set, you need to know when it goes outside of those confines, and you can't do that unless you're logging the action sets that it takes. If an agent spins up 300 GPU instances, you're probably going to want to know exactly what conditions that was done under.
Yeah. Hopefully you have quotas set on your cloud accounts and whatnot. That'll hopefully trip off some of that stuff.
Yeah, that's true. Now, let's reverse course. We've talked about the dangers in using agentic AI and some of the things that you need to use, that you might need to think about if you're going to design an agent-based coding system into your pipeline. But there's a lot of interest in doing so because I have been in development for a long time, and I've sat and watched two engineers debate a single lint rule for 45 minutes, whereas 45 minutes, an agent can write, test, ship, document, and benchmark a feature. So yeah, I mean, in the same time that it would take for the single lint rule to be debated, an engineer shipped no features and an agent shipped one. So clearly there's some value to be had here. Any other benefits to incorporating agentic coding?
Yeah, I would say, all of those things, your wish list of things that I wish I had. If this just existed, I could do my job so much more better or faster or whatever it might be, that benefit. Getting that proof of concept out the door and showing that value, and then that becomes a justification. But, being able to validate something super quick and pursue business, I think is super valuable for businesses right now.
I agree. We're ticking down to the close of time, and so we always like to finish out Pop Goes the Stack with some lessons learned. What did you learn today about the possibility of an agent coding for you?
I would say that even though you can go out to those single shot platforms to build something, just taking a little bit of time to learn, and again, I'm no expert, but taking a little bit of time to learn a little bit of software development principles is going to help out in a lot of ways. And actually, I would increase my knowledge now just because I know I can work with Claude better when I know more about that. So I think vibe coding is not a hands-off situation. It's very much actually the more knowledge you have and can apply to vibe coding, just it's jet fuel to really smart people. So
yeah.
Hope to become a really smart person.
Yeah, I think I learned that when you're talking what you should inject into your pipeline, you can't forget to do the things that you would do with an inexperienced coder. You have to know who asked the system to do what and when. So making sure that you record transactions, that every action is logged, and that you can trace it back. That's important. And as you embed agentic AI into these systems, you need to ask it to do that for you. Runtime tripwires, having some sort of outside system that mediates and looks at the elements of cost. I think that's important as well. Sandboxing by default, making sure that you are very explicit about what the agent can do and what it should never do. And then putting evaluations in your planning loop for your product plan. These are all important things to accomplish. But
It sounds like you've created vibe coding regulations on the fly, Joel.
well, I'm trying. I'm absolutely trying. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. If you enjoyed learning how to keep your agents from YOLO shipping code at 3 a.m., go ahead and hit like and subscribe. We'll be back with more ways to stay one step ahead of the machine and preferably upstream of their pull requests. For now, that's all. Thanks for listening to Pop Goes the Stack.